Hello, this is Jeremy Smith with the Native American Environmental Rights Advocacy Group to discuss a proposed legislation to prevent the systematic violation of Native Americans' federally protected land from being used for corporate interests that negatively impact the environment and the health of Native Americans. I will specifically address the proposed pipeline called the Dakota Access Pipeline by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that is scheduled to be ran through the Standing Rock within the Sioux Nation under the nation's water supply at the Ohe Reservoir, which is fed by the Missouri River. Every person and animal that live peacefully in this nation rely on the groundwater supply for life. Running an oil pipeline under the nation's water supply poses a great environment impact and risk to life unnecessarily. The oil pipeline impacts 8,217 indigenous people of the Sioux Nation, consisting of the Loka people, who live on a 3,571 square mile reservation and rely on the clean water source for drinking, fishing, and agriculture. In addition, there are tens of thousands of species that rely on the groundwater supply connected to the lakes, rivers, and streams that feed the water supply to the nation and its inhabitants. The Ohe Reservoir resides a half a mile upstream, and if one of the pipelines were to leak crude oil under the reservoir and contaminate the water, it would make the water supply undrinkable and toxic to the tribe's livestock and agriculture. Lake Ohe is a sacred lake for the Sioux, and contaminating the water with oil would prevent the Native Americans from holding religious exercises granted to them by the federally protected Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Additionally, the Native Americans have federally protected rights to a clean water supply for the nation on their ancestors' lands and have inalienable rights to access clean drinking water afforded under the 1908 Supreme Court case Winters versus United States, which states that water reserves will not be impeded to provide the reservation's purpose, which includes preserving the life and health and the prosperity and while maintaining the culture and environmental significance of their people. The court case states that those indigenous people that are forced on tribal land have a right to access and use surface water for their needs. However, we propose to include the extension of groundwater and seek legislation to protect the water supply from these types of behaviors and acts against the Sioux people and their way of life. The United States has consistently and repeatedly violated the rights set forth to protect the Native Americans with the treaties, specifically by silencing the Native Americans' rights to clean drinking water supplies in the past, despite the well-founded federal laws protecting those rights. In Cheyenne, North Dakota, lies a well-documented rooted special trust relationship between the Sioux Nation and the United States that is designed to respect the people and their nation and protect their culture and dignity and preserve their way of life. The proposal of the oil pipeline being built under the Ohe Reservoir directly impedes the established treaty with the Sioux and the United States and threatens their health and their lives from impeding contamination of the water supply. There are several alternative locations to place the pipeline that would not impact the environment to the Sioux surrounding communities or their environment. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did an environment impact study that reflected the decimation of the environment and invaluable resources to the Sioux people that would dramatically and negatively affect their environment with the Sioux people rely on to survive. However, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers have discarded the survey and proposed to implement the pipeline anyway, citing the Trump administration with their unfounded cause to install the pipeline despite the impact of the Sioux people and their surrounding environment. We have proposed that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to run the pipeline around the Sioux Nation, but our requests were rebutted with exaggerated additional costs to do so. We also suggested to run the pipeline above ground and away from the water supply, but we were met with silence. The legislation proposes to protect the people of the Sioux Nation and all Native American tribes from any proposed industrialization that would impact their health negatively. Native Americans, including the Sioux people, are ostracized to designated tribal lands of our ancestors set forth by the United States treaty with our people. The legislation would prevent such illness as depressed immune system, birth defects, and cancer, and preserve the healthy living style of Native Americans and their livestock and agriculture and the immense species populations that they all call home. These and other illnesses have been well documented, supported, and preserved in earlier case law and legislation supported by the Supreme Court and the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States. This will also preserve our way of life of living off the land and protect the current and future people who reside on the land and use the water from such atrocities and influential damage for generations to come. We do not seek a blanket immunity to stop industrialization. We only seek preservation of lives and culture as promised by the United States. The current cost of construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline is estimated to be $3.8 billion and spans across 1,168 miles. We propose that the pipeline is moved 100 miles around the Sioux Nation, adding 100 miles of more pipeline to its route with an additional cost of $325 million. The relocation of the pipeline has been evaluated to provide no significant environmental impact to the surrounding communities and provides for a different route that employs a gravity staging area that will improve the flow for the oil through the pipeline. The gravity feed staging can provide additional protections to the environment by detecting leakage upline and downline from the staging area to help ensure the surrounding environment is not impacted by petroleum contamination. The second proposal in this legislation would be to construct the pipeline above ground near the water supply with additional security features. This would add additional cost to the proposed pipeline of $185 million. The additional security features would include advanced leakage detection that can notify appropriate agencies of an imminent leakage before it happens, and a backup pipeline that can be utilized if the primary pipeline starts to fail or is in need of repairs. If we do not implement these changes to the oil pipeline, there is a significant risk to life and property. Environmental and genetic studies were done on the effects of the pipeline to the indigenous people, and it claims that if there was leaks from the pipeline that contaminated the water supply, it would lay waste to the land and make it impossible to farm or grow food within 6 months. Within 1 year, 85% of the affected population will have serious and life-threatening immune depression that will allow for severe illnesses to ravage the people there. Within 18 months, cancer, cardiovascular, heart, brain, lung, kidney, and liver diseases will become rampant within 2 years. And within 2 years, birth defects, including high-risk pregnancies that can prove lethal for both the child and the mother, will result. Within 4 years, the land will have been deeply penetrated with petroleum, and all life on the reservation will be inhabitable for humans and wildlife alike. There are no modern solutions to fix the impact of the environment once it's been deeply seeded into the water and the soil of the land. It would take over 2,000 years for the environment to repair itself and return to pre-contaminated levels. The Sioux Nation and the Sioux people have hunted, survived, and lived on this land for thousands of years, and the pipeline threatens to destroy this culturally significant area and needs to be protected. As you're aware of the overwhelming media coverage on this situation, there has been an outcry of supporters from all over the nation that have come together to have their voices heard. You passed hundreds of the supporters of this legislation outside the building, demonstrating their resolve and strong stance on the adoption of this legislation. These supporters are here to fight for something that should not have been up for a fight in the first place, instead of being at work or at home with their families. They understand the significance of this law and find it necessary to show that the importance of the legislation and how it impacts thousands of lives now and in the future. These are your constituents that supported you during elections, and they know that you would not let something like this happen. Show them that they didn't make the right choice. They didn't make the wrong choice by supporting you, and show the voters outside that you will stand up for fair and equal access to inalienable rights, such as access to clean drinking water, and put aside corporate interest. This issue goes beyond votes that you may retain or lose from either side. I know that this is a hard decision, and most ethical decisions are. However, your decision will affect the lives of thousands of people, but it will impact the minds and the decisions of hundreds of thousands of voters. You have the ability to retain the conservative voters that are on your side now, and you have the ability to win and you have the full support of the moderate voters in this county already. The decision has the ability to swing liberal voters your way, and progressive voters that you may lose are only a small fraction of the voter registration makeup of this county anyways. Here in Cheyenne, we want to preserve our environment and enjoy our nature and wildlife for generations to come, and not to watch it be destroyed by a toxic industrial march forward while they trample on our beautiful resources that we deserve and require to live. Join the majority of Cheyenne and help us preserve the way of life and preserve our way of life, not to be intoxicated by fat cat interests, and rise up to be the legislator we know that you can and the leader that you strive to be.